May the sacred presence of him who said he would abide in his teaching be our guide. May we follow his glorious example and tread with unfaltering step this noble path until we too shall attain enlightenment. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, maha prajna paramita. So once again, good evening to all of you. Tonight is a little bit different in that we'll be doing more interactive, and there'll be an opportunity to do some writing and reflecting. As Teiko was saying during the announcements, for the past several years, I have it back to at least 2015, but maybe we did it before that, where we've started each new year, the first Wednesday, we have done an activity that's based on the death poem tradition out of Japan. So I'll explain a little bit about what that tradition is. This is by no means it's going to be about 2 paragraphs worth of information, just to give a little bit of context. And I'll give you some resources also if you are interested in knowing more about that. In general, just to not keep those who might not be familiar with this in suspense, comes out of something called jisei, which is Japanese word for farewell to life poem. So the poems that these traditionally were created when someone was anticipating the moment of death. And it's meant to impart something, some bit of wisdom that you might want to leave behind. It's, in a way, one way of looking at these poems, it's sort of a just in case poem. Just in case, I want to be sure I tell you this. So I also really am thinking about the time that we're in right now. We're in another wave of the pandemic, and there's just been so many months and now approaching years of loss and grief. And I really am sensitive to this topic and thinking, oh, this might be actually not the right thing for some folks tonight. So I think we can take it with a pretty light touch, but I just want to recognize that we're all kind of feeling the effects of what we've been through in different ways. So please, if this does not feel like the right thing as we get into it, you can totally bow out. That's always true, right? That's always true. But I just want you to encourage to pay attention to how you're doing with it. And if you're feeling like, you know what? And also you can always feel free to reach out afterwards. But anyway, just put that in there as just a reminder to always be paying attention to your own sense of wisdom and care for yourself with any of this. So having said that, I'll give you a little roadmap to where we're headed this evening. I'm going to share, as I said, a little bit of the context and history of this. And we'll be sharing some examples of poems that have been created. I'll share a little bit about my own connection with this. And I'm hoping that the bulk of the time will be spent giving you a chance to reflect and perhaps create some of your own poems. So we'll probably have about 10 or 15 minutes, I'm hoping, for that. Kind of check in with you all as we go. And then afterwards, we'll have a chance to share in some way. No pressure at all to share, especially since there's quite a few of us. I'd love to see all your lovely faces in my screen. So there's no pressure at all. Sometimes people share what they've created. Sometimes we share just about the experience of creating it, about what it was like to reflect or how it's feeling. I'll just share right now, even as I prepared to do this with you all. I'm feeling a little bit blank, so I'm kind of curious to know what will happen in terms of actually reflecting and creating something. So if you're feeling a little bit like, I wasn't anticipating having to write or do anything, you can even sit quietly through the time and just be with that feeling of nothing is coming to mind. It's all in the pot, right? So any response is fine and welcome. But I just like to make sure people know there's no pressure to share. And I'll get to this with the instructions, but particularly because I don't want people to feel like they're editing themselves because they're going to share, right? So create something for yourself. And whether it feels right to share with a group, do that. But other than that, really, I hope people will just really take the time to reflect, just even for a few minutes. Can be really nourishing and helpful. Alrighty. So a bit of context and how we do this. So first, to dispel any mystery, it's really haiku as kind of the traditional form of creating these, but it doesn't have to be. And haiku is traditionally 3 lines, and with the first line being 5 syllables, and then I can tell I'm in work mode because I do a lot of hand gesturing work. 5, 7 syllables, and 5. So funny. So 5, 7, 5. But deviate, that's just often traditional, but we can deviate from that. And I also wanted to share just the fancy Zoom business. So I also wanted to share the source for a lot of the examples and things that I know about this come from, oh, can you see? Can you see? It's blurry. How weird. I'm going to put, allow me to flash a blurry title at you. So death poems, you can see that it's blue. I'm going to just put it in the chat because I was ready to do that. So funny. Was it truly blurry? It seems like it was blurry. Okay. Wasn't just my view. Let me put this in the chat.
Because your background's blurred, shouldn't I?
Oh, because I'm blurred in the back. I forgot I'm blurred. I meant to unblur. Let me unblur. All right, now I'm sharp. Here it is. And I put it in the chat too. Kind of nice to have that, just in case. So a tiny bit of history. So this tradition really goes back a very long ways out of Japan. Part of it came out of the samurais writing these poems, and also intersects with Zen monks and Zen practitioners also creating these poems. The oldest death poem dates back to 686, the oldest one that they found, and was a poet written by a poet and son of an emperor in way back in Japan. As I mentioned, jisei is the Japanese word that's used for this, and it translates to farewell to life. And as I also shared, it's meant to invoke in the reader's mind what is going on for the writer just in that moment before death. So it's meant to be a little bit of a aha, I see. And often the images that are used in these poems invoke nature, meant to invoke impermanence, emptiness. And some of the images can be a bit somber, many are playful. And in addition to these images of impermanence or just like this leaping into the next moment, there is a lot that's evoked around acceptance and hope, and having all of this be part of this natural cycle of what it is to be human. just the next thing. So I'll share a little bit about my connection with this practice. So I first learned about this practice when I was living as a resident at Darmoraine, and we used to do a joint New Year's Eve party with Zen Community of Oregon, now Great Vow / Heart of Wisdom. And so there'd be a big gathering, potluck, dancing, then zazen. And the next morning, oftentimes the folks from ZCO would spend the night at Darmoraine. So the next morning we would have breakfast. And their tradition was to create these New Year's poems and share them at breakfast. So that was my very first experience doing that. And honestly, we'd stayed up late the night before. I was a little like, what? But super interesting and fun to see what other people shared. And I also have a recollection that one year at Darmoraine, we kicked it up a notch and actually took Polaroid photos and that went with your poem. So it was almost like to have on file, just in case. So it would be your picture and your parting bit of whatever you wanted to impart that was easily accessible, ready to roll. I don't know that we did that more than one year, but I do remember taking a Polaroid one year. And we'll share one that Kyokan Carlson, I know we've been reading his book, that he created, that has been shared before, which I love to share again. My other connection with death poems is, and I know some of you heard this before, so I apologize, but gosh, it's been about 10 years ago, I had a health scare and was facing a pretty uncertain and potentially dire diagnosis. And Jico, Sally Tisdale, another lay teacher at Darmoraine, gave me a copy of this book. So as I was waiting for appointments and figuring out what the news was going to be, I was reading these death poems. And it seems like kind of an odd thing, such a Zen teacher thing to do, right? And it seemed odd at the time, but it was so comforting to dive into these poetic descriptions of just the unknown and really help me kind of have moments. I won't say it really was all the time, but have moments of just letting go into the possibility of, like, you just don't know. You just don't know. So it was very helpful, but I have to say I was sort of this dramatic waiting room patient, all with my death poems and my black scarf all around me. And I'm sure I was quite the drama queen with it all. But I just put a plug in for this and that. It's oddly comforting when faced with the unknown and uncertainty, and knowing that it's such a human experience, and everybody, there's so many that have gone before us and have faced this and can share a little bit. All right. I'm looking for my examples. So here comes the fancy Zoom business. I am going to attempt, I'm hoping I can still see you. I wanted to share some examples of these just to give you a flavor. And I would love for others to read some of these. I just lost track of some of my, I would love for others to read these. So when I put them on the screen, maybe I can just ask for some volunteers so we get some other voices heard. And this will give you a sense. So it's interesting that the idea is to this moment of anticipating what this next thing is. We don't really, oftentimes we don't know when that's going to be, right? But many of the examples came from people that did have a sense that they were either ill or something was about to happen. So let me see here. I'm going to share my screen. Is it doing it? Nod your heads. All right. So I apologize, I don't have the history of the authors, but they are cited there. Some are samurai, some are Zen monks, some are haiku and Zen teachers. I would love for someone to just read this and maybe read it twice. They're very short. It takes a little bit to absorb it. So if anybody would be willing to just unmute themselves and read, I would be grateful.
I could.
Thanks.
Empty-handed, I entered the world. Barefoot, I leave it. My coming, my going, two simple happenings that got entangled.
Wonderful. Do you mind reading it one more time?
No, that's fine. Empty-handed, I entered the world. Barefoot, I leave it. My coming, my going, two simple happenings that got entangled.
So here is the next one. So if someone would mind reading this one.
I can do that.
Thanks.
My old body, a drop of dew grown heavy at the leaf tip. My old body, a drop of dew grown heavy at the leaf tip.
Thanks, Susanna. And the next one, if anyone would be willing.
I can. Falling ill on a journey, my dreams go wandering over withered fields. Falling ill on a journey, my dreams go wandering over withered fields.
Let's see. Oops. And the next one, there's about 3 more, I think. The next one, if anyone's willing.
I will. A small night storm blows, saying falling is the essence of a flower, preceding those who hesitate. A small night storm blows, saying falling is the essence of a flower, preceding those who hesitate.
That's a more recent one, 1970. Interesting.
Yeah, those other ones were old.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. This one's kind of humorous. If anyone's step up and do this one.
I love that one.
Anybody else willing to read?
I can read it.
Great.
Bury me when I die, beneath a wine barrel, in a tavern. With luck, the cask will leak.
Love that one.
Bury me when I die, beneath a wine barrel, in a tavern. With luck, the cask will leak.
That one was 1838. Thank you, Emily. And let's see. And this is Zen Master Dogen's. So if someone would be willing to read this one, very famous one.
I'll read it.
Thanks.
40 and 50 years I've hung the sky with stars. Now I leap through, what shattering? 4 and 50 years I've hung the sky with stars. Now I leap through, what shattering?
And that's a different translation. I kind of didn't clock that. There's another one about leaping into the river. And let's see. And then I think this is the last one. This is the one that Kyogen wrote.
I'll read it.
Thanks.
A moment ago, so much undone. Now all is as it should be, a mystery. A moment ago, so much undone. Now all is as it should be, a mystery.
Thank you.
I love that one.
So I think, let's see, that is, that's all I have in terms of examples. Let's get there. Well, while you're writing, I will put the, there's a nice course for some of these slides. I won't take credit for them. That came out of an American publication out of Tokyo about Japanese culture. It's really nice. So now I'd like to send you to reflect and perhaps create a couple of your own, or just be with what we just read. So I'll give you about minutes to journal, create some poems, and I'll check in with everyone at 8:03 according to my computer time, and then see how people are doing with the time. And I'll kind of notice if you're all, if we were in a room together, I have a better sense of gauge.